NeonicVoid Productions presents.
All right. Well, welcome back to Book Watchers, where the plot is made up and the booty thickens. The movie was better than the book anyway.
Did you say welcome to Book
I'm your host.
Did you say the booty thickens?
Yep.
I mean, from what we're talking about today, I guess it checks out because you have a weird thing with Godzilla, so it checks out. It checks out.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. Anyway.
I mean, your name is Kaiju Groupie. Anyway.
I put that as a joke, and you guys actually take it serious. Like, I'm not one of you depraved little freaks like you with your fucking tentacles and shit, Mr. Cthulhu fucker over here.
Leave the tentacles out of this. Leave Mr. Werewolf.
Leave the kaiju.
Mr. Werewolf.
Leave the good boy out of this.
Don't even get me started, you werewolf lover.
You don't get me started, okay? You fucking psychedelic horror freak. Cosmic horror.
I know good shit. Anyway, hi. It's I, the treasure, the joy of people's lives, Devin. And there's Delulu incarnate Jacob.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, yeah. No.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything, and you're over here. Over here talking about you're the treasure and joy of people's lives.
I am the treasure of joy of people's lives. Your life. Your life. I'm the treasure and joy of your life. You wake up every morning like, oh, God, I'm so happy Devin's my best friend. Fucking better be. Fucking better be.
So anyway. Moving on. Hi, hello, welcome back. Today, we are going to be discussing something a little bit different. It's a little different because, it kind of is, because this isn't really, we're not talking about a book that had a movie adaptation. We're talking about something that's kind of
It's
flipped.
the reverse.
It's the reverse, because today we are talking about the original novelization. Stop blurring it out, you piece of shit.
Well, you have your background blurred.
So I'm not unblurring it. So
I know.
Today we are talking. Let me finish, damn it. So today we are talking about Godzilla. We're talking about the original novelization of Telescope's Godzilla, or Gojira, if you want to be a gatekeeper like that, and Godzilla Raids Again.
Yeah, yes.
So anyway,
now before Sorry, continue. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought. Finish what you're saying about the book.
So this is a very gorgeous print. You can find it on Amazon. My bestie over here got it for my birthday.
Because it came out last October. Yeah.
It came out last October, and he got us both copies.
Well, I got myself the digital copy. I'm gonna get the physical copy for myself at some point, but I just need the money. But before you get into the book, just pay attention to these little Godzillas, okay? These little adorable little creatures.
Are those from the new movie?
This one is.
Oh,
it's a little metal cast Godzilla that they released.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did show me those.
Yeah, and if you be nice to me, if I go to Five Below, I might find one and buy you it, so you can have it for your collection, for your obsession.
Oh shit!
Your little collection of Godzillas on top of your bed.
Hey, don't judge my collection. You motherfucker added to it.
I did.
This was my Christmas gift, along with another book. But this was This is the Blacklight Mothra.
Yep.
So like,
I'm
So
feeding.
like, you
I'm
can't
feeding that
talk.
obsession. Yeah, I'm feeding that obsession. I almost kept that for myself. Almost.
Well, you didn't, and
I didn't.
it's
I
mine
didn't.
now.
Yeah. But before we get into it, so
If
if
you
you look in the description below or on podcast notes or whatever, you'll see that there is a link tree that'll take you to all the stuff that you ever need to know about NeonicVoid Productions, all the other podcasts, the Twitters. We have a TikTok now. Woo woo. There's
Woo.
YouTube, all that fun shit. All that's down there in the notes if you want to go take a gander. Anyway, we'll go on, nerd.
Okay. Oh, I'm the nerd. Says the man.
Don't pay attention
with
to the
nerd
background. Nerd
Mhm.
walls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even showing the Marvel wall I have on the side over here. It's covered in posters of my Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange shelf with all my figures and stuff on it. It's just gorgeous. Anyway.
Pot kettle.
Pot kettle. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Not even mad.
Yeah. So, anyways, today's episode is going to be slightly different from the norm because we're not reviewing a book that was adapted into a movie. We're reviewing a movie that was adapted into a book. So, this book is just really the novelization of the movies. So, Gojira or Godzilla, or if you watch the very shitty American edit, Godzilla King of the Monsters. I can say that because I've done my research. By now, I should have a PhD in this shit, but you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, so this book is actually just like a direct transcript of the movie itself. So if you watch the movie and then you read this, you'll realize, oh, this is literally just. It's like you were just reading what you just watched.
It's written by the same guy who wrote the original scripts for those two movies.
Yeah, and so everything that happens in this book happens exactly the way you see it in the movies. There's no little extra hidden snippet of information. There's not any little piece of information that was added or like subtracted. Kind of like what you see from like books to movies or TV shows. So this is gonna be a fun episode because I don't have to talk about like the differences. Just really there's the plot. Yeah. So if you haven't really seen, if you haven't been exposed to Godzilla before,
where have you been?
By now, where have you been? Also, like you've been listening to our podcast for a while now. I'm gonna make assumptions and say you did. And you probably at one point or another heard me talk about Godzilla at some point. All right, because I love it. I'm a huge fan.
Same.
All right, and I've been immersed in Godzilla fandom since I was a little kid. My mom was a big fan of it, but she wasn't as avid as I was, and for me it was just that thing that she knew I liked it, so she always got me like the movies, the collectibles, little toys, things like that. So I've always been a part of it, and as I got older and I started realizing there's so much more to it and started like doing my own research, I realized like this movie / novel, the Japanese edit, the original Japanese version is the better version because if you're as old as me or close to my age and you grew up in the age of the dinosaurs that we call VHS, Godzilla was originally released under the name Godzilla King of the Monsters, and there was two versions of it. There was one released in Japan, and then there's the Americanized version, Godzilla, which is called Godzilla King of the Monsters, not to be confused with the one with Legendary Pictures Godzilla King of the Monsters.
I mean, that's why they named it like that. referencing the old one. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like a mild reference to that, but at the same time, like, so when Godzilla first came out, the original Godzilla first came out, it was a huge success in Japan. It really captured the horror and the terror that the Japanese people felt in the wake of World War II, especially with the uh, firebombing of Tokyo and the greater part of Japan, as well as the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So Godzilla was meant to be this living incarnation of nuclear power, because in the following decade after the initial bombing of those cities, uh, people were scared because the American military began its tests in the Pacific at the Bikini Atoll with hydrogen bomb tests, and there were dozens of tests being conducted all across the Pacific Ocean, just ranging from just like uh, regular atomic tests to even underground tests, and it was all done in those areas. So, and then also you had the rise of nuclear power in the form of like fusion reactors. Nuclear fission reactors, if you want to be technical. So, nuclear power. It was this new concept, and people were terrified. All right, and Godzilla was meant to be this symbol that represented that. So the story is straightforward. It starts off with just some fishing boats begin to go missing, not far from a small island chain off the coast of Japan, and some they do the Japanese Coast Guard does receive like SOS signals that boats are being attacked, and they do send out rescue ships to try to locate these boats and any survivors. But every time they do, more boats keep getting destroyed, and more people are going missing. Fishing boats keep disappearing, and even though they send Coast Guard to mount a rescue, those ships are also going missing. Eventually, they get word that a survivor from one of the fishing boats had washed up on an island not too far from where the disappearances were happening. So the Japanese government decides to dispatch a research team because they had reason to believe that the disappearances are being caused by a massive creature.
Oh
So
no!
they want to know.
Really? Who could be?
Who knows? I mean, I don't know, man. It could be anything at this point. Yeah. So they do send. They send a research vessel to the island. They do find the survivor as well as, and they speak to the locals, and the locals tell them a wild story about something straight out of their folk tales. This is reference to their local traditions and beliefs that the island is haunted by a creature they called Gojira. So Gojira is like, it's not so much of a deity or a guardian animal. It's just more of like what's the best way to describe it? Like a common occurrence or a natural occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of their life.
Yeah.
But the thing is, at this point, the creature is never been seen before. They believe that whenever Gojira surfaces, he brings up fish from deeper part of the sea. So like deep sea fish end up getting pulled up with him. And the locals even point out that when the disappearances happened, they notice that there's a bunch of deep sea fish coming up. But more recently, with the attacks, they also notice that their fishing has completely stopped. Like they're not finding any new fish. They're not able to bring anything in. Researchers continue to question them, Okay, I'm sorry. Let's backtrack a bit. So, so the government does receive word that survivors from these from the disappearing vessels were found. In fact, they were found washed up on a near one of the an island nearby called Odo Island. Um, they convene to decide what they're going to do. In the meanwhile, the survivor, who also happened to be a native of Odo Island, uh, begins telling the local people, that he thought it was a submarine, but it may have been something else. That's when some of the elder villagers start talking about it's probably Gojira, but most people dismiss it because it's just really a folktale at this point.
Yeah.
But they can't deny that fishing has pretty much dried up around the island, so they're not catching any fish or anything like that. Um, while they're on the island, uh, something happens. Strange winds begin to blow in off of the ocean, and villagers take shelter. But while they're taking shelter, the survivor realizes that this wind was exactly the same as what he experienced when his ship got destroyed.
Gas.
So he runs outside. Yeah, he runs outside because reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking because he does believe it was a living creature, and he thinks, okay, well, you know what, I'm gonna go fuck this bitch up. So he grabs a knife and runs outside.
Like you do.
And his brother and his mother try to stop him, but all they hear from him outside is like this just screams. And pretty much when the chapter ends, the house gets torn down, and that's pretty much where the chapter ends. It doesn't really go further into that. The research vessel does later appear on the island, and they find half of it in ruins. Has been completely ruined. Many of the houses were reduced to rubble. Several people were killed, and when asking the surviving villagers, they say that they start saying the same thing. It was Gojira. And the researchers are baffled because they did receive reports that it could have been a live animal, but they weren't sure.
Yeah.
Because at first their estimates were suggesting that the animal wasn't as big as they thought.
Of course.
But then they find a footprint.
I mean, the truth the truth is in the footprint.
Yeah, so honestly, like that whole footprint scene has been used so many times throughout the franchise. Like Matthew Broderick's movie, they find a big ass footprint left by Godzilla, and he's just standing there. He's just standing there, like, what am I supposed to be looking for? Like, where's the evidence? You said there was a sample. There was a sample here. Where is it? And the colonel is just like, you're standing in it. It's this big ass Godzilla foot. Pretty much the same thing. While they're conducting their investigation of the island, the villagers begin sounding an alarm, and they're saying that Godzilla has been spotted on the other side of the island, and they all begin running towards because the island is kind of like split in half by like a small mountain.
Yeah.
So they begin running up a path to try to get a look on the other side of the island. And as they're getting toward, the researchers end up going with the villagers to try to get a peek at what is causing the commotion. And before any of them can reach the peak of this hill, they see Godzilla's head just kind of like.
Oh God, he's making a demonstration.
Yeah. They just see Godzilla's head come up like rar.
Rar.
Rar. But that's pretty much exactly what happens. People freak out. They go running for their lives. Godzilla doesn't come over the hill. In fact, he turns around and walks back down the other way. After they compose themselves, they run back up to the hill, and while they don't see him go into the sea, they can see his trail of footprints leading down into the ocean. At this point, they more ships begin to go missing, and the government starts noticing that the missing ships are following a path, so it's slowly getting closer to Tokyo. So, or rather, not Tokyo. It's like a. Let's see here. Where does Godzilla first step? All right. So, okay, this is. So they have reason to believe that Godzilla was going to make landfall in an area, in that one bay area of Tokyo, and so they begin issuing evacuation orders for Minato, Shinagawa, and Ota, and other coastal wards. Eventually, Godzilla does make landfall, and he attacks one of the wards before going back into the ocean. Military defenses didn't really do shit to him. They had tanks. They had tanks. They shot missiles. Nothing affected him. And if anything, all Godzilla did was in response was to shoot out his atomic breath. And the way the book describes his atomic breath isn't really like a breath attack, or more like, or anything like shooting fire from his mouth. The way his atomic breath is described in the book is his spines light up, and then there's a flash of light, and everything is just bathed, and then everything just bursts into flames.
That's actually more terrifying. It seems more like,
yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really was terrifying. Godzilla goes back into the ocean for a bit, and the Japanese Defense Force rethinks their strategy for handling him, and they instead set up a sort of net around the coastal region. It's just basically like power lines. They think that maybe instead of just shooting Godzilla full of lead, they could try to electrocute him, or at least repel him using like high voltage wires. Doesn't work. He comes back onto land, and he barrels right through the electrified fence, and he goes on another rampage. This time through the greater region of Tokyo, and the devastation was insane. He destroys like a good chunk of the city. He burns everything to the ground. He's destroying buildings. A lot of people die, and there's this one scene in the original movie, like when I first watched Godzilla King of the Monsters, they cut out a lot of scenes and they changed a lot of things around, so it was less shocking and more appealing to the American audience. And also they edited in an American character. It's like a news reporter. And when I found that out, I was like, oh, that's some bullshit right here. I want to see what it's like in the original. So I found the original. They on DVD, watched it, and I'm like, oh, this is so much better. The story makes so much sense now.
Yeah. I haven't watched the American one, but I've watched the Japanese one. Can only imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I told you to watch the Japanese version. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about the American version, though.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was one really after this attack, there was a really shocking scene where you could just see, like, of course you could see all the demolished buildings, but there was a hospital full of survivors, many people suffering from radiation burns and just like a wide range of injuries. There was one scene where there was this woman who unfortunately passed away from her injuries, and she had a little girl, and the little girl started crying, and I'm just like, oh my god, no.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other human aspects in the movie / book, and I'm not gonna get into everything. There's one professor. So there was one character. His name is Professor Yamane, and he believes Godzilla is a wonder of nature, and he thinks that instead of trying to kill him, they should try to study him. But the thing is that Godzilla is too dangerous. They can't. He is what would be described. Godzilla is what would be described as an extremophile. So he is a life form that can survive in the most brutal and extreme conditions.
Mm.
An example of an extremophile would be forms of archaebacteria which grow around volcanoes, which are, as you can imagine, are very hot. There's even a species of volcanic snails they're deep sea snails, and they live. You can find them mostly in the the deep sea, and you mostly find them around hydrothermal vents, which are just like these vents that are constantly spewing out minerals. It's not like so much as it's not a volcano, but they are considered a form of volcanic activity because the temperatures around hydrothermal vents are pretty high. So these snails have adapted to live in those extremely hot conditions, and also their shells they've adapted because they're able to get such a high amount of iron from the hydrothermal vents. They've adapted that iron into their shells, so they literally grow metal shells and armor plates around them. So it's kind of like those are examples of extremophiles, and Godzilla is like the extremist of extremophiles because missiles, tanks, conventional weaponry, nothing can hurt him. They've already theorized at this point that Godzilla was a result of the atomic testing in the Bikini Atoll.
Gee, wonder what gave him that idea.
Well, because really what gave him that idea was in their initial investigation of Odo Island, they had Geiger readers with them, and as they were scanning the landscape, they discovered that there was radioactive contamination on the island, even though there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So they know Godzilla is radioactive. Godzilla gives off some form of radioactive waste, and of course, the running theory is that he was some sort of deep sea creature that was exposed to the radiation from the atomic tests, and it mutated him into what we have now. And although Professor Yamane wants to keep him alive, wants to preserve him and study him. The rest of the government think, no, they got to figure out a way to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yamane happens to be a very close friend to another researcher. I know it's Serizawa. That's his name. So he was close friends to another researcher named Dr. Serizawa. Now, Serizawa is a bit of a recluse. He spends most of his time in his home where his laboratory is set up, and he's doing a form of confidential research that he refuses to share with anybody, at least with a very select few people. At one point, he does show Dr. Yamane's daughter what he was working on, and he forced her to swear not to tell anybody about his research because, for one thing, his research is intended as a form. I believe it was supposed to be intended as a form of alternative energy, or something else entirely, as a way to break down radioactive contamination. But the thing is that he also recognized that his research could also be used in the form of weapon application, and he's terrified of anybody figuring out about it and start using it as a terrible weapon because we already got the atomic weapons. What he's working on is way worse.
Yeah, most definitely.
But after witnessing the destruction caused by Godzilla, Dr. Yamane's daughter decides it's time to tell his secret because she knows that if anything can kill Godzilla, it would be Dr. Serizawa's research, what he's working on. And so she tells the authorities what he's working on, and it's revealed that what he's working on is something called an oxygen destroyer. Its intended purpose is, like I said, to break down radioactive waste. But the thing is that it breaks down uh, I believe the way he says what he described it is as, and this is movie science, guys. So it's not actually real. So you don't got nothing to worry about. Don't come for me saying like, oh, that's not factually correct. Like I know that, and I don't really care. So don't come for me. So the oxygen destroyer works by breaking down the molecular bonds of oxygen atoms, and when it does that, it causes rapid automation of living organisms. So if a life form is exposed to the oxygen destroyer, because most things like living things and otherwise, actually use oxygen in its everyday function, including even in things that we wouldn't expect, like bonding, like molecular bonds.
Yeah.
You never would have guessed that oxygen is also can be used as as a bond. Hell, like if oxygen was to suddenly disappear from the earth, most buildings around the world will immediately collapse because of how like some like steel and concrete uses oxygen as a bonding agent. Which is
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a random fact that I saw from one of those Did You Know pages on like social media. Like I need to like look it up if I'm factually incorrect. Like I said, I don't care. It's movie logic.
Yeah.
So, the so when he actually did gave a demonstration to her, Sarazawa dropped this little bead containing the oxygen destroyer, and when the bead he put this bead in a fish tank, and when it went off, all the fish immediately disintegrated.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And
dear.
That's just like a marble. Yeah, that's just a marble-sized oxygen destroyer. If it was something bigger, it could wipe out an entire city, or even more. It could wipe out life on the planet. But she, as well as several of her friends, go to Sarazawa, and they convince him to use his oxygen destroyer as a weapon to kill Godzilla. He's not happy about it at first, and initially he refuses staunchly, and it does like lead into like a small fight between them. But he does eventually agree, but he ends up destroying his research notes and all the paperwork that he had on the subject, so that way no one can replicate his work. I mean, eventually someone will, but
yeah.
Now they're gonna have to start from scratch. They're not gonna be able to figure out from what his using his own logic. So using his research, I'm sorry, and he builds a bigger oxygen destroyer. It's like a basketball size metal ball contained within like a cylinder. And Godzilla had retreated to a deeper part of the Bay Area outside off the coast of Japan. They lead a team, and Sarazawa alongside another scuba diver go down, and they find Godzilla. Sarazawa, however, didn't tell anybody that he was planning on not coming back, because even if his notes were gone, even if he destroyed all his work, eventually people are going to start pressuring him into continuing his work with the oxygen destroyer, and he just doesn't want that. Now that people know it can be used as a weapon, he doesn't want to be a part of that. So he just wants to make sure that the oxygen destroyer never
sees the light of day
again.
Yeah.
So he, on their way down, he damages the other scuba divers' equipment, forcing him to return to the surface. And he goes down, he finds Godzilla, and he sets off the oxygen destroyer, and it completely kills Godzilla. Like Godzilla at first, like his regenerative abilities try to like stave off the process of disintegration, and towards the end you see Godzilla kind of just like rise up out of the ocean, and he's writhing in pain, he's screaming, and finally he just sinks back down into the ocean, and all that's left is his bones, completely stripped of all flesh.
Well, shit.
Yep. So that's pretty much where that ends. Like, there's a lot more the human element that I didn't really talk about. Honestly, like a lot of the human element is just really talking about the who's and the whys and the philosophies of whether or not it's right to kill Godzilla or to attack him, or hell, like why, like it's the who's and the why. Why is Godzilla? That's really like a lot in that's really what a lot of the old Godzilla films were about, at least the more serious ones. It's like, why is Godzilla? Oh, because humans are dumb. It's
Yeah,
usually the answer. Because humans are dumb.
exactly. Yeah,
They fucked around with,
and they found out.
like, yeah, they fucked around and found out. I mean, that's really what scientific research is. It's just fucking around and finding out.
Yeah, but with
I'm pretty
Godzilla,
sure a
they
lot of,
really found out.
oh yeah, they really found out. And so that's pretty much where Godzilla ends. There's a lot more that I didn't really talk about, but that's because this actually has 2 books in it. So we're gonna go over both of them in this. See, it's not even that big.
Yeah, it's
Like I read, like honestly, I read Godzilla. I finished that within like a week, but it took me longer to finish Godzilla Raids Again because I'll be honest, Godzilla Raids Again was not my favorite. Like, in fact, it is probably my least favorite of the entire franchise, which is saying something because Matthew Broderick's Godzilla is the worst, in my opinion. The original Americanized American Godzilla that came out in 1998.
You leave
was
Zilla alone. Zilla tries her
No.
best, okay?
No, she doesn't. No.
You like the
She's not
TV
even Godzilla.
series.
See, the TV series had its own redemption. Like, it actually fixed some shit that was wrong with the movie, okay? The movie was trash. Alright, the so-called atomic breath scene that we were supposed to get was just like a little puff of fire. That was it. And then she gets nerfed by a bunch of missiles. Like, Godzilla, like, and there's not a single Godzilla film where Godzilla gets nerfed by a couple missiles. Like, not one. I see you trying to think of it, but no. Look, hey, look at me. Look at me. Devin, look at me. Look at me. No. Yeah. Because I see you trying to think, like, oh, there was probably a movie where Godzilla gets taken down by a missile. No. No. You think there are several films where, like, you know, he does get overwhelmed by some missiles, but and they think that he's dead.
Whoa.
Hey, look at me.
Spoiler alert.
No.
Spoiler alert for anyone who has not seen Godzilla
No.
-1. Didn't they take him out? No, it was a plane. It was even worse. It was a plane that took him out. Wasn't it?
It was a plane that took him.
Wasn't it?
Yes, but after everything, they already look. Let me tell you something. This Godzilla was not the strongest. All right. Don't go there. Don't go there.
He got taken out by a plane, even worse than a missile. At least the other one.
He got taken out. His face got blown off by a mine because it was in his mouth, but his face grew back. The reason why I did it this time was because they had already done a lot of other things. Hey, look at me. Look at me. No.
Okay. Pick and choose. Now, granted, it's again spoilers. He did die, but there's something else happening with the remains of that Godzilla, which we'll hopefully see.
And he's growing back, so he's not really.
We don't know. We don't know to what extent, if he's actually growing back, or if this is like the origin of all the other kaiju's. So we don't exactly know what his remains are happening there, and the mark on her neck, on that character's neck. And if you watch it, you know. But like, we don't know what's gonna happen with those body parts.
Oh, we already know this. I already know there's going to be a sequel. At this point, they can't not make a sequel.
It's made a shit ton of money.
They can't at this point. Godzilla -1, they can't not make a sequel.
Oh, it's so good.
At this point, holy shit. Holy shit. All I saw was like a blurred out like thing moving around in the background. I was like, what is that? That's my dog. That's my dog.
It's Shelly.
I forgot she was in here.
Yeah, I saw her head pop up and I was like, who the fuck is that? I'm like, oh, it's a dog. It's Shelly.
Yeah. So, okay. Point in case there is going to be a sequel. They haven't announced one yet, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be because at this point, Godzilla Minus One is the most successful foreign film in America.
But don't
Like it is the
say,
most.
"Oh no, Godzilla's the only one that got taken out by a missile." When minus one got taken out by a plane in a mine. So like, case and point. Thank you.
He literally recovered from the mine, and he couldn't
Well, the
recover from the
plane.
plane
Yeah.
because he
Mhm,
was frozen
mhm.
after they had
Ah.
dropped his ass down into the depths
Mhm,
and rose him back up rapidly.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
that
Point
is a more
to
extreme form of
Devin.
punishment than
Future
that was
Devin.
an extreme form of damage being
Uh-huh,
done to
uh-huh,
him. Okay,
uh-huh,
more than
uh-huh.
anything than a regular set
Mhm,
of missiles and a bunch of
mhm,
lead being shot at
mhm,
him.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm.
yeah, you know,
Future Devin.
look at me. No, future Devin, look at me. Look at me. No.
Future Devin. If you can make a tally board, put 1 point for Devin, and put 0 for Jacob. Thank you. Thank
No,
you.
Devin,
Thank you.
future Devin, put 1 point for Devin and 100 points for Jacob because I've already made 100 points well over you many times in the past. You got one. You got one. Okay, that's all you got.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, so moving on, we got the other half of the book.
Yeah.
Godzilla raids again.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before, I was really interrupted.
Okay.
Raids again was was one of my least favorites, just because
Why?
it was. It never really when I watched it, it just never really captured my attention the way that Godzilla did.
Court.
It never really it came off to me as something silly and lighthearted, whereas like Godzilla was more serious. Now I don't know if they did that because they wanted to try to appeal to different audiences, make Godzilla more friendly and appealing. No, like what made Godzilla so successful was the fact that he was brutal and he was destructive and dangerous and he was scary. Because
Yeah.
Godzilla is a horror monster. It's a uh sorry. Saw Shelly moving again. I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh no, not
god.
again.
But no, yeah,
And
the original one's more like especially if you watch the movie, the book is kind of the same way too. But if you watch the movie,
mhm.
it's a lot more. It's ooky spooky. Like the black and white,
It's a
they
horror film.
utilize. Yeah, it's a horror film. They utilize the black and white to their advantage, and he looks terrifying in the original.
But then Raids Again comes out, and there's only two movies that were in black and white, and that was Godzilla and Godzilla Raids Again. Those were the only two movies that were. Um, Raids Again came out both movies came out in the 50s, and then after that, all the other movies that came out after that were from the 60s and 70s, and those movies were all in color.
Yeah.
And while they weren't as silly, most of them weren't as silly as Raids Again. They had a more serious tone. Also, like if you watch Raids Again, in the black and white lighting, it was a lot more brighter, so you could see how ridiculous Godzilla looked in that lighting. Because this was back when they were still using rubber suits, when Godzilla had a more toad-like face. Oh god, I remember that one. Because Godzilla had many different his appearance changes throughout the entire franchise. Like the original Godzilla was definitely more serious, and they pretty much used the same suit from the second movie, but it was sillier. I just thought it was silly because immediately so the story starts off. It's very it's you can kind of see a theme. It's like fishermen, because this time there's several commercial fishing vessels, and they utilize a seaplane to fly up and spot out schools of fish, so that way the boats could come in and quickly net them up and something like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, the seaplane gets one of the seaplanes gets a distress call from one of the other ones flying in the area that it had gone down.
Yeah.
So he mounts a rescue, ends up going to tracking that ship down to a nearby island. He lands a seaplane to go find the pilot who survived, and when he finds him, he also finds that Godzilla is on the island, or another Godzilla is on the island, because remember this one is a direct sequel to Godzilla. So this is another Godzilla. The other one they do reference that the other one was killed.
Was this one like a child or some shit, or just another one?
No, it was just another one.
Oh, okay.
It was another fully grown Godzilla, and what was shocking to them was that Godzilla was fighting another colossal creature. Technically, like, this creature becomes known as Anguirus in later films, but in this film and slash book, he's just called an Ankylosaurus because his appearance more directly looks like an Ankylosaurus. Those who strangely enough don't know what an Ankylosaurus looks like. They look like a giant armadillo, but with spikes coming out of their back. And that's pretty much what
an image will show up on the screen if you're watching the video portion of the pod. It'll show up on the screen to show you what he looks like. But yeah, he does look like that type of dinosaur, basically. Anyway,
now Godzilla is believed to be related to like certain dinosaur species. Like they actually do relate him to a dinosaur called a Godzillasaurus, and he's just like a irradiated, mutated cousin.
Yeah.
But so yeah, they find Godzilla and Anguirus. I'm just gonna refer to him as Anguirus because that's the name I've always known that monster by. They're fighting, they're duking it out, and if you watch the movie, it looks kind of silly, just the way they're rolling around, like fighting each other. And eventually, the fight nearly kills the two pilots, but they manage to escape and return to Japan to warn the country that, hey, there's not just one, but there's two monsters now, and one of them is Godzilla. Is another Godzilla. Woo! So they're trying to figure out ways to defend the country from the two monsters. Eventually, the two monsters do come to shore and they fight on land before being chased off. Before Godzilla chases Anguirus back out into the ocean, just like his cousin's first landing a few years earlier, leaves widespread devastation. This time it was in Osaka. And Osaka, it is Osaka because Osaka is the city with that big castle, right? It's like a big towering castle.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Hold on. Future Dev and edit that out. So.
If you should edit that part out, baby.
Once I see it, I'll know what it is. Yep, it is. Because well, hold on. Let me post it on the chat.
Post it on the chat. So I'll just post it in the video so people can get a look.
So the funny thing about this castle, hold on, what is it called? This is the I think it's just called Osaka Castle. Yeah, it's one of Japan's most famous landmarks and shit like that. And that castle becomes iconic throughout the entire franchise because that's one of the buildings that gets destroyed the most in the Godzilla franchise.
Yeah.
So in this fight between these two colossal monsters, in this fight between the two, there you go. They end up fighting, like their fight pushes them towards this castle and they end up destroying it. And it ends up being destroyed, I don't know how many more times throughout the franchise. Hell, and even in Shin Godzilla, you see it again. But he doesn't destroy it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Godzilla does eventually chase Anguirus down to another island, and they fight once again, and this time Godzilla kills Anguirus. So he's dead, deceased. Now the Japanese self-defense force has to figure out what are they going to do about Godzilla, because he's moving steadily north along the coast, and eventually reaches an island that is covered in ice and snow. And the self-defense force gets this idea: why not try trapping Godzilla in ice? This
That
island
works.
it does. They they mount an attack on Godzilla, and they manage to trap him in this gorge valley area. They shoot missiles at the surrounding ice and rock, and it causes an avalanche that buries Godzilla. And that's pretty much how the book ends. Like, Godzilla is defeated, quote unquote, and now he's frozen and buried under all that ice. He doesn't come out, and I think it's like it works because the intense cold makes it hard for Godzilla to maintain his natural body heat, even though he's radioactive. I guess the ice helps counteract that radioactive heat.
Yeah,
and it slows him down. But that's pretty much it. There's a lot more in the story. Honestly, like, I skimmed through this book and I just can't really like get into it. That's why it's one of my least favorite, because it just doesn't keep my attention. And yeah, I will say I'm sorry that I didn't really pay much attention to the story. I mean, yeah, it's the second movie, it's the second installation of the entire franchise. But that's pretty much how the story goes. There is somewhat of a human element. Like, Professor Yamane does make an appearance in this book again, and he offers his advice. And still, he's this time he's more amicable to like dealing with Godzilla. And he does see him more of a threat now. But whether or not he still thinks they should preserve and study Godzilla is never really. It's not a topic that's broached. But really, the human element is centered around that seaplane pilot and his friends. So, and that's another thing that happens is that in this movie, in like Godzilla franchise, is that it focuses on characters that don't really have much influence or direct connection to like the story as a whole. It's just more of like that human aspect, and they do a lot of the who's, whys, and hows of Godzilla. So,
and sometimes you just don't. Yeah, sometimes you just don't need the who's and whys.
Well, yeah, you just need people who actually know what they're doing and who are actually going to make a difference. I mean, the seaplane pilot, he does take part in the final fight with Godzilla, because he uses a seaplane to lure Godzilla to that area where he gets buried in all that ice and snow. But that's pretty much it. If you guys want to check this stuff out, of course, this book is on sale on Amazon. I'm not sure if they have any more copies left, because it did sell out pretty quickly.
It did?
But if they have more, they should. Did it?
Hold the fuck up.
I could have swore it sold out for a bit.
They
might have more.
See. It might have more now. Because I know, because this is the first time that these novels have been translated and released in the United States, so it kind of was a big deal originally.
Yeah.
Yeah, they still have copies. Yeah, that's Gucci.
Yeah, they still got copies.
Yeah, if not, if you can't find a physical copy, they also have it for digital as well, because I have it digitally currently. But no, yeah, they still have digital copies. But yeah, if you want to read the original, adaptation of novelization. Sorry, that's the proper wording. Novelization of the Godzilla film, the first two Godzilla films. It's right there for you.
Yep, you can find it on Amazon for Kindle and physical copy. Of course, you can also watch the movies. I believe Godzilla is streamable on either Max or Amazon. Let me double check.
It might be Tubi, because I know some of them are on Tubi as well. Some of them are. I don't know about all of them. Godzilla 1954. Tubi.
So 54. It's on Tubi, but it's also on Prime Video and on Max. Just make sure to watch the original Japanese version. The American version is trash. All right.
It is.
Makes no sense. It it just makes no sense because it's mostly just narration from this American journalist who has no real part of this. Who
Needed
was
to be
not
there.
really a part of. Yeah, when I found that out and I watched the original Japanese version, I realized, God, this is so much better. Hell, I don't even watch the Japanese movies in English dub anymore because if you watch them in English dub, especially like the older movies,
That's
you'll
true.
like miss out on. They'll change a lot. Like they changed a lot in the American dubs, even if they didn't edit it to like include American characters and stuff like what they did with the first movie.
Yeah.
They changed the translation around because they thought, okay, it'll make more sense if we change the lines to this,
Yeah.
right?
So they
Because
think.
yeah, but no, they didn't. If anything, they cut out a lot of information like that was important to the story. Like, so in in one of the later movies, Godzilla versus Mothra, um, Mothra laid an egg that hatched into two caterpillars, and in one of the movies after that, I think it was either Destroy All Monsters or I think which movie it was because there was another movie where you see Mothra again, but it was so like Mothra, the adult Mothra dies in Godzilla vs. Mothra, and her two caterpillars survive and they go back to Infant Island. Probably was no, I think it was either Godzilla. It was either Ghidorah the three-headed monster because Mothra shows up again, but as a caterpillar, or Destroy. No, it was Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, because so like initially there were three monsters that had their own standalone films. It was Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra. They all had their own movies, and then eventually they all get their own. They all get a crossover with Godzilla. Like Rodan did not get like his own standalone like Godzilla like crossover with Godzilla where it's just him and Godzilla fighting like how it was with Mothra.
Yeah.
But I think like the first time Rodan crosses over is in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster because it takes Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan to all fight against King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
And when Mothra was called into action, because like Mothra has these little like foot tall fairies who act as priestesses for Mothra because they worship her as a goddess, and they're able to call Mothra to come help them. And when the Japanese government asks them to call Mothra to help them fight King Ghidorah, they do. But they also ask her like they were talking to them because they would regularly come back to Japan to like improve relations between Infant Island and the Japanese government. Because if you watch the original Mothra movie, what caused Mothra to go on a rampage was because some entrepreneurs kidnapped the fairies, and they call Mothra, and she comes and she destroys Tokyo, trying to rescue them.
I mean, don't take her girls.
So, yeah, and then later on, of course, the egg, like the whole thing with Godzilla and Godzilla versus Mothra happened.
Yeah.
And then Ghidorah comes in, and it was in that movie like the fairies came to Japan as part of like an outreach program. And while they were talking to them, someone asked them because like if you listen, the point I was trying to get to, I went on a huge segue, was that in the English dubs they often exclude or change what's being said, like the information. And for the longest time, because I'd only watched the English dubs of these movies, I was like, wait a second, there was two larvae in Godzilla vs. Mothra. There was two caterpillars, but in this movie after that, there was only one. What happens to the other one? And they never said it in the English dub, like what happened to the other one, right? And I thought, I wonder if it's like what do they say in Japanese? So I just listened to it in Japanese. And in the Japanese sub, in the Japanese version, they literally say what happened to it. They're like, "Oh, hey, like what happened to the other?" Like someone asked them, like, "So what happened to the other caterpillar?" And the fairies were like, "Oh, it died."
They could just put that one line in there.
I guess because they in America these films were often catered to kids, so they and you know how American media, they're very like picky and touchy and like what you put in your movies, especially if there's a chance that kids will see it.
Yeah.
And so they probably changed it out because they didn't want to acknowledge the fact that there's caterpillar died.
Oh no.
Oh no, caterpillar died.
Oh no.
So yeah, so I highly recommend watching the original Japanese edit of Godzilla, of the 1954 Godzilla, and at this point, just watch it in Japanese with English subtitles because you'll learn a lot more from the story that way. And the same with Godzilla Raids Again. Even if you don't like it, I didn't really like it because it just didn't capture my attention like the other movies did. I mean, hey, Raids Again wasn't the only movie that was silly that I didn't really care about. If you watch like movies like Godzilla versus Megalon, Godzilla versus Gigan, and pretty much Godzilla versus Hedorah. Like the movies, like there was a string of movies that came out in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Those movies were not only stupid, but they were also like they were kind of they were a trip. I think like some of the producers were on something, you know, it's the 70s. Because if you watch Godzilla versus I think it was either Megalon. There's they introduce a character named Jet Jaguar, and it's basically Ultraman, except he's a robot. And Godzilla vs. Hedorah was the trippiest out of them all because they really did a lot of the, like there was, like the 70s had this deal with psychedelics and stuff like that, like psychedelic imagery. There was like a whole scene in Godzilla vs. Hedorah where they're in a club, and I guess like this dude got high or something, and he was tripping balls. So, yeah. So Raids Again wasn't the only like weak movie in the franchise, but it was just one
Yeah.
Godzilla, I'll definitely give Godzilla a 5 out of 5. Raids Again, I'm just gonna give it a 3 out of 5. It was still good, but it wasn't as good as the original. But anyway, that's all we have. We can go on all day talking about Godzilla, but of course you can't watch you honestly can't get into the newer films without watching the old films. If you don't want to watch them all, okay, that's fine. At least watch the original one, because this one right here,
coming to you from the kaiju groupie himself.
Yeah, I tell that to anybody who gets into Godzilla because hell, I told this to random strangers when I went to go see Shin Godzilla for the first time. This was back in 2015, and I was living in Orlando at the time. I was in college, and I skipped a lab just to go see it.
I mean, I would have too, but granted, I didn't see Shin Godzilla until like 2019? When I first saw Shin Godzilla.
You saw it because I told you about it.
Yeah, and I was like,
you saw it because like we were talking about Legendary Pictures Godzillas. I think King of the Monsters just came out, or it was about to come out. And I don't remember our conversation exactly, but I think you mentioned like how you wish Telescope would come out with new stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I asked you, have you seen Shin Godzilla? And you're like, what is that? And I was like,
I think I mentioned something along the lines of, I wish they made like a Godzilla that was more like ooky, spooky. And of course, I'm always on a cosmic horror kick. And you're like, oh, have you watched Shin Godzilla?
Oh, they did. You should watch Shin Godzilla. They did, because it was directed by the dude who made Evangelion. If you've watched Evangelion, it's very like cosmic horror, ooky, spooky.
Yeah.
Kind of, and you're just like,
vibe.
Oh,
I was like,
oh, okay. And then you watched it, and you're all like, you're just like, oh, it's Eldritch. Like, it's very, I'm getting very Eldritch vibe. Like,
and then there's a whole episode on it on Spook because we did a whole kaiju month last year. And girl, it's full on cosmic horror, and I was not disappointing. I watched the dub of it first, but I did watch the sub after. And the dub that I guess it was Funimation, that Funimation did wasn't too bad. But because I was like, because I think you went on one of your little rants about the dub versus the sub as the Godzilla films, and I'm like, okay, I'll go back and watch the Shin Godzilla subbed, and I'm like, oh, okay, they didn't change much of anything in this one anyway. So I don't know about the other newer ones. Granted, this Shin Godzilla is the latest one since like what 2000, 2004, something like that. Was the last one before that?
Yeah, so Shin Godzilla, like, so it was the first film since Godzilla Final Wars.
Yeah.
So the ones that the Japanese made.
Yes, the Japanese.
Gareth Edwards' Godzilla came out. Yeah, Gareth Edwards' Godzilla just came out the year before, and the Japanese were all like, hey, this was actually really good. They did a good job. You know, hey,
we can't let them have all the fun.
Yeah, hey, hold up a second. We're the ones who made this shit in the first place. We gotta show them how it's done. And then they made Shin Godzilla, and the thing is, Shin Godzilla was popular, and it was actually one of their more successful films. It's just that it just wasn't meeting their It didn't really meet their expectations.
I roll my eyes.
But the whole thing that they had planned for Shin Godzilla, they scrapped it, and
so upset.
But they wanted to come back to it because they were like, well, wait, we have, like, let's just, like, see what Legendary is going to do, because, you know, the first Godzilla came out, and it was really popular, got a lot of people interested. I mean, there was only 2 complaints about that movie that I had, and that was really Godzilla's atomic breath, because his atomic breath was, like, definitely more... Gareth Edwards was more faithful to the Showa series, which is like the movies like from 54 to the mid 70s. So it actually looked like a stream of fire. And his feet. That was the other thing.
He's a thick boy.
Yeah, these little stubby feet.
He has stubby little feet. He's so cute.
They were tree stumps. They weren't stubby little feet. They were just stumps.
He's a thick boy.
Anyway, yeah, I thought about it, and you know, whole physiology thing, like physiology mutation thing.
It makes
like,
no sense.
Bigger the animal, huh?
When you really look at it, I've watched. Again, don't look into the signs of Godzilla, the American or the Japanese. It makes no sense, because I watched a whole video on someone dissecting would Godzilla. And the Legendary Godzilla makes sense with Earth's gravity and how the have gravity and the Earth is. Would Godzilla make sense with his body biologically? Could that thing exist? No, it could not. No. None of the Titans technically could.
An animal could technically get to his size, but only in the ocean, because in the ocean there's no limit to how big an animal can grow.
Well, the way his body is, he cave in on itself under his own body weight.
Yeah,
it was the way he was built.
If he was a land animal, but if he was a land animal, but it's a movie. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Don't look too far into it. Don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, but whatever. I got over it. His even now, I still look at his stubby feet, and I'm like,
he's not getting stubby feet anymore. He evolved. Well, he's skinny. He is skinny. Still stubby feet. They're not stubby. They're more defined now. He's skinny. He got skinny.
Oh, did they? Okay, if they fix his feet,
with the pink one, yeah, he's more limber. With this new evolution, and the whole pink vibe is the light spectrum. So that's why they changed the color to like a magenta or a pink. It's because it's the next line and like the light. There's a whole science approach of why they changed his color scheme to more of a magenta pink than the blue.
Yeah.
There's a whole science behind it. It's fun. Look it up. It's great. There might be a link in the description. I might get spicy and put a link in the description so everyone can catch up on that. Because by the time this gets released, actually, when this gets released, it'll be like the week after Godzilla versus Kong New Empire comes out.
Oh, okay.
Because this episode's gonna get released on April 4th. Yes, I know. I'm hoping to get free tickets for my birthday. Hopefully.
Wow.
So we can see.
You better get me some tickets.
Yes. So who do you think is going to go? Who do you think I'm going to have go with me? I want to do it on the 29th and have
you have a boyfriend
go with me. Yeah. Which he's going to go too, but so are you. The fuck?
Okay.
Do you really think I'm not going to take you with me? What? How dare you? How dare you? Of course you're going to get a free ticket. The fuck?
Okay. I better.
Yeah,
it's your birthday, but it's my day.
Oh my god. It's my special day. Well, not really. My special day is on a Thursday, but still. But that's what I want to do for my birthday is go see Godzilla, the new Godzilla film. So yes, of course you're gonna go. You're gonna get a free ticket. If I have to fight somebody, you're gonna get a free ticket. The fuck?
You better fight dirty too. If you fight, you better fight dirty.
I only fight dirty. Never fight fair. Do you think Godzilla fights fair? No. And on that note.
Yeah, but anyway, so if you want to get really into watching it, like there are over 30 films in the entire franchise, including the American movies.
Something
if you want to like go chronologically, like with the Japanese ones, definitely start out with Godzilla and then go from there. If you go on Amazon right now, they have this huge collector set of the Showa series.
Oh, yeah.
I have it. His boyfriend has it.
Yeah, my boyfriend has it.
It's great. It's this big old booklet. I have it on my shelf over here. I'm not gonna grab it though.
All the Blu-rays and all the movies and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can watch most of them on either Prime Video, Tubi, Max. Honestly, I think it's a pain in the ass trying to find all the movies on like streaming services because they're not all on there.
Yeah.
But like the Japanese movies are like divided into like 4
eras,
different eras. Like there's the Showa era, which is the series of movies from 1954 to like the mid 70s. There's the Heisei era, which is my personal favorite because it came out in the 80s and 90s. That's where Godzilla's more like he's more big boy, and he's not portrayed as this anti-hero, but he's viewed as like this existential threat, and I just love him. All right, that's where like, and that series introduced like his like some of his most powerful enemies. Like King Ghidorah was what came out in the Showa series originally, but that he was like the only. Okay, so it was King Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra, and Mechagodzilla. Those 4 are the ones that survived every era, including them that have shown up in every era, including the American version in the American ones. All right.
They're the most well-known ones.
Yeah, they're the most well-known and they're the most popular. That's pretty much why King of the Monsters was made. Legendary Pictures King of the Monsters was made because they had gotten the rights for those 4 monsters. Well, but you know, of course, Mothra, Ghidorah, and Rodan came out in King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
And then Godzilla vs. Kong, we got Mechagodzilla, and I was just like, when I realized it was Mechagodzilla, I was like, it's fucking Mechagodzilla. They got Mechagodzilla. All right.
I want to see Biolante, Space Godzilla, and or Destroyer. Because they already used the Oxygen Destroyer. Destroyer comes from that, so it's like, give us Destroyer.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to be the final boss, honestly.
I don't know about that, but if they do, that's probably not going to be until later.
Yeah.
They would, if they're going to make Destroyer, they're going to have to get the rights for Destroyer from Toho Scope.
Oh, I'm sure I'm sure they have the rights to majority of the monsters already. They just not putting them all in there.
At this point, it's pretty much just Godzilla at this point, and Mothra. I think is apparently Mothra's going to come out in the next movie.
I know some things I can't say anything because I'm not going to give you any spoilers. I know things. But no, I'm sure they have the rights to majority of the monsters that they want, but they have a story they want to tell with particular set of monsters, even though I'm like, girl, give us Biolante, please. Because Biolante is one of my faves.
I just want them to do something that they haven't done since the Showa series. I mean, they kind of did it in the Millennium series, which the Millennium series was the third era, but that's space monsters, alien monsters. Like the Showa series, like you had monsters like King Ghidorah. Mechagodzilla was technically a space monster because he was made by aliens. He was originally made by aliens, and then there was Gigan. There was Megalon doesn't really count because he came from underground, but you can kind of count him.
Yeah.
But and then of course Space Godzilla from the Heisei series, and King Ghidorah wasn't a space monster anymore. He was created on Earth like by people from the future. And was there another space monster? No, it was just Space Godzilla. And then the Millennium series, they kind of did something with space monsters, but that was just in Final Wars because we got Monster X and Kaiser Ghidorah.
Yeah.
But that was it. Everything, all the other monsters were completely terrestrial. They came from this world.
And then of course we got the current era of Godzilla in Japan. That's the, what do they call it? What's the name of the era currently for Godzilla in Japan?
I think it's just called Japanese verse. I don't
know. I think it's called yet. It's like REIWA, something like that. Let me look it up.
Oh, Reiwa series.
Yes. That's the one with that's the one with like Godzilla, Planet of the animated monsters, Shin Godzilla, or the anime Godzillas.
Oh yeah, I forgot the animated movies.
Planet Godzilla, Singular Point Godzilla, which I'm like, I could with Shin Godzilla with the fact they didn't do the Earth Godzilla, the fact that they didn't do the whole cosmic, he's a being from another dimension, or it's like some otherworldly eldritch horror. They kind of use that plot for a lot of the other stuff, not necessarily for like the Earth Godzilla, the plant monster, but more so for like the Singular Point Godzilla. Because Singular Point Godzilla is like a 13th dimensional being creature thing.
Something like that. He was like he was like supposed to be a living singularity.
From like the form he saw was only like it's like basically a toenail of the actual creature. Yeah. So I'm like, y'all took those ideas and you repurposed it. I see.
Singular Point was if you take it as it is, it was okay. It was good. It was entertaining.
That was weird in a good way.
Yeah, it was, but like for me, I'm just like it was like they took all his the monsters he's fought before, mainly from the Showa series, and they mixed them together into like monsters like with other monsters. So you had like these because there's a praying mantis monster from the Showa series, and then there's Megalon, who's basically a drill beetle.
Yeah.
And they mixed those two together, creating
they made a bunch of like
Chemacuras.
Yeah, they made like a bunch of like chimera type mixed match of pieces of monsters. Well, they took like you were saying, like different monsters from different eras and kind of mixed them together.
Yeah, and then there was like Manda, who's this giant sea serpent. Godzilla technically never fought Manda one-on-one. At least like if you watch Destroy All Monsters, Manda was in that one. Manda got his own standalone film, but he wasn't really the center point of the film. If you want to watch it, it's called The Atragon. It's actually it's a really cool movie. It's like this flying like the Atragon is this flying ship. It's a warship that can fly. It has a big drill in the front so it can drill underground, and it's also a submarine. So it's like an all-terrain ship. It's actually pretty cool, but like they were like they had to deal with this it's kind of like this Atlantis-like civilization, but it was like called the Mu Empire, and Manda was like a guardian spirit beast.
Yeah,
and that's where Manda originally appeared in, but he never actually had any role in the Godzilla verse, any of the Godzilla verses. So But they gave him a bigger role in Singular Point, and then of course Godzilla, in his three different forms. He started off as basically Titanosaurus, because that sea monster version of himself was just Titanosaurus, but more of like a sea monster instead of like a dinosaur. And then you got Gorosaurus, which is another like Tyrannosaurus type monster that never actually appeared in any of the Godzilla movies except for Destroy All Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Godzilla himself.
Yeah.
But I liked when he was in his when he was in his second form, which was the Gorosaurus form. His atomic breath was those rings, which was what
Yes.
Minilla or Godzilla Jr. got. I hate his name. It's like it's either Manila, or just Godzilla Jr. I prefer just calling him Godzilla Jr. because it's easier than saying those other fucking names.
Yeah.
But it's just because he used to. So Godzilla Jr., when he would shoot his atomic breath, it wasn't like a stream of fire. It was just this little
ring,
like a little ring.
Yeah.
Didn't do shit.
No, it sure as hell did not.
But I mean, in Singular Point, it was dangerous. But then, of course, he evolved into his final form, and then that was where he got his stream. But yeah, so the Reiwa series is the new series, which includes those animated films and the. Does it include the MonsterVerse or no?
No, it does not. MonsterVerse is a totally different thing outside of Japan, because it includes the animated stuff as well as Shin and -1 is thrown in that too. Currently, from what I can, from what I've read.
Well,
but -1 is
they do.
What?
I hope they make another collector's set just like the Showa one that I bought, where it's just all of the Heisei series on Blu-ray in this big old booklet. I mean, there's not as many movies in the Heisei series as there was in the Showa series, but that would be great. That would be great. But
yeah,
give us more. Godzilla -1 was so good. It's like the most popular Godzilla movie in the history of Godzilla movies, or at least from the Japanese movies.
If anyone from the Japanese Godzilla team for Godzilla -1 is listening, if you don't follow through to your weird, like, hinting at the next sequel of like the whole mark that people start popping up on, or at least that one person you assume other people have it too, and then the flesh melding into other things. If you don't follow through with that, because let me tell you something, I'm gonna look right in the camera at this. If you don't follow through on the ooky spooky, not necessarily cosmic horror, but like the eldritch the weirdness, because eldritch is another word for weird. It doesn't necessarily have to mean cosmic horror, but even though it's associated with that, the weirdness of it all, and make it really fucking weird and just lean into it. I don't want it. Don't puss out. Don't puss it on the eldritch, on the weird of it all, because that's weird. And that's what intrigued. I mean, I love -1, but at the end, I was like, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm fully here now. I was already here, but now I'm here. Like, because shit was weird. I want to know more. So don't puss out on me. Lean into the weird, please. I didn't get my Shin Godzilla sequels. I want the weird.
To completely contradict what he's just saying, I don't care what you do, just give me more. I want more.
I mean, as all this good, but like I want the weird.
Yeah. If you make more animation, like animated stuff, like let's just do it.
Yeah.
All right.
Because
but anyway,
he's my favorite. My favorite. he my favorite. He my favorite. Anyway, enough of me with my little Godzilla action figures, and then like Kong and anyway.
Yeah, the big ape.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was Godzilla and Godzilla Raids again.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for listening in.
Yes.
And tune in next week. Wait, what did you want to do next week?
I don't know. I have to figure it out. I don't know what I want to do next week. We'll decide. Next week, we'll figure it out.
Fuck it. No, decided right now. We're doing book 1 of this one fantasy series that I've been reading. Just fuck it. We're going to go ahead and just start reviewing them. I have not finished the series yet because there's a lot, but we're going to go ahead and do book 1 because it has already been adapted into a TV show by
Now
Amazon.
I gotta watch it. Now I gotta watch that.
You better watch it. There's only 8 episodes. You can do it.
Okay, I can watch it. I can watch it. Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to be reviewing book 1 and season 1 of The Wheel of Time.
Yay!
By Robert Jordan. Now they don't, since it's a TV show, they don't give you the actual name they don't give a specific name for each book, but it's not just Wheel of Time book 1, 2, and 3. Book 1 of the Wheel of Time is called The Eye of the World.
Yay! Okay, now I will have to watch that show because I'm not reading those books. I'm just not. I can't. Not right now.
On average, the books, okay, for those like really advanced readers, it's not like a very long book, but if you're like just an average reader like me, the average page length is 1,000 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I'm on book 6.
Out of 14, yeah.
Out of 14 books.
How is book 6 for you? Are you halfway through yet?
No, I'm about 40% of the way through. Somewhere between 35 and 40% of the way through.
Oh.
So I'm getting there. I just started reading it like, when did I start reading it? Sometime last week.
Last week, something like that. Yeah. Like Monday or Tuesday.
Like yeah, so far book 5 was my favorite. Just mainly because one of the bad guys, like,
yeah,
she got taken out, but she went down kicking and screaming, and she made a scene, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
But
so yeah, we'll do that next week for the Wheel of Time. Yay! So catch us then. Until then, bye.
Bye.